As a civil rights advocate, I'm glad to be standing here as part of a program that's co-produced by the world famous Apollo Theater. And I want you to know I'm not confused about how I got here. I'm not here because I have a TV show on MSNBC. That's not what paved my way here. I'm here because other advocates paved the way for me. I benefited from their fights for justice and from their investments in me. One of those was the Honorable Percy Sutton. Decades ago, when the Apollo was closed and in danger of being torn down, Mr. Sutton and his friends bought and restored it. Mr. Sutton had been a civil rights attorney. He'd been Malcolm X's lawyer. And as a civil rights lawyer and a radio station owner, he restored the Apollo because he understood how the right kinds of entertainment could reverberate and help uplift and embolden us. He made the connection between activism and the arts, just like this event, MLK Arts and Activism is doing. I'm glad to be a part of a program honoring one of my heroes, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. I got to meet Dr. King twice as a kid, but I connected with him throughout my life. Operation Breadbasket was founded by Dr. King and the Southern Christian Leadership Conference in 1962. And Reverend Jesse Jackson, one of Dr. King's lieutenants and one of my mentors, appointed me as the youth director of the New York City division of Operation Breadbasket when I was 13 years old in 1969. Decades later, I co-founded the National Action Network, or NAN, as we call it, and the Reverend Dr. Y.T. Walker, who once served as Dr. King's chief of staff, was NAN's first chairman of the board. We modeled NAN in the nonviolent and church-based tradition of Dr. King and the SCLC. Men like Y.T. Walker, Jesse Jackson, Percy Sutton, Bill Jones, James Brown, they didn't invest in me because I was an author or because I had a TV show. They didn't owe me nothing. They weren't seeking a return on their investment. I was a kid on welfare, being raised by a single mother in the projects in Brownsville. I couldn't give those men anything but respect and gratitude. They didn't invest in me because I was on the stage at the Apollo. I've been on stage at the Apollo because they invested in me. I have a new book out now. It's called Righteous Troublemakers, and its focus is on the people whose names you probably don't know, even though they made invaluable contributions in the struggle for justice. But this program, MLK Arts and Activism, is almost the opposite of my Righteous Troublemakers book. The program focuses on household names, people who had money and reputations to lose, but who were willing to risk losing money and fame because there was something in them that needed to stand against injustice. One of those people was another one of my mentors, a father figure to me, the godfather of soul, James Brown. Mr. Brown made money at the Apollo performing songs like Cold Sweater, Please, Please, Please. And he will always be remembered for using his fame to hope and help our consciousness come open with songs like Say It Loud, I'm Black and I'm Proud. Michael Jackson was discovered on the Apollo stage, and much of the world will remember Michael for his Thriller and Bad albums. But I remember Michael engaging me and others to do Black advocacy work. We traveled with him during the Victory Tour at the height of his career. I remember his songs like They Don't Really Care About Us and Heal the World. That's what I remember. So I ask artists today, what do you want to be remembered for? I preached both Michael Jackson and James Brown's funerals. And I didn't have a hard time coming up with things to say because they did things. We all are going to have a funeral. What do you want somebody to be able to say about you? I wish more artists understood their careers are fleeting, Nobody's on top of the charts forever. 20 years from now, when your six packs beer, your six packs belly, it turns to a beer belly, and when nobody wants to see you twerk, then what? I'm not saying don't look good. I'm not even saying don't be sexy. And I'm a reverend. James Brown saying hot pants and get up. I feel like being a sex machine. But he also sang soul power. And I don't want nobody to give me nothing. Open up the door, I can get it myself. Wasn't nobody sexier than Marvin Gaye. Let's get it on. You sure love the ball. Sexual healing. But he also did What's Going On. Marvin sang about police brutality and fought his own record label to do it. Think about that. If we did that over 50 years ago in 1971 without TikTok and social media, then you can do it in 2022. Don't get me wrong. There's always a risk in advocacy. It's always easier to do what's popular, and it's usually more lucrative. But when you stand for right things, your community won't forget you. They'll forget what number your song ranked on the Billboard chart, but they won't forget what you did. Martin Luther King attacked and vilified by the media in his final years, but when he was killed, tens of thousands of people stood on his funeral route. Michael Jackson and James Brown died years after either one of them had a big hit record, but their deaths made front page news around the world and in Hollywood. People didn't just say, oh yeah, those guys used to sing such and such song back in the day. No, when those men died, people stood online outside the Apollo for hours, in the freezing cold for Mr. Brown, and in the pouring rain for Michael Jackson, line going around the corner for blocks, not to see them in concert, but for the chance to say thank you. Yes, that was partly because we loved their music, but it was mostly because we knew they loved us. They took chances for us. They went against the grain for us. They went up against the powers that be because they knew there's a higher power that eventually we're all going to have to answer to. If you want to be average, just do what most folks do, conform. But this is a holiday for a man the whole world remembers because he wouldn't conform. We don't celebrate Martin Luther King Jr. because he was mainstream. We celebrate him because he changed the tide. And in doing so, he helped pave the way for me and for all of us.